if I can, in English, because it's going to be video recorded, and we hope to put it on the Erasmus platform. Okay? But the Saturday one, for parents, will be as far as possible in Maltese. Okay? But not as far as possible. All right? Now, it has to be very unstructured. We're not going to give formal lectures. We're going to talk. We're going to discuss. Okay? And our subject is visually impaired students. Now, first of all, I apologize if I can't speak well, but I'm having a brief. Our main purpose at first was advice. Advice is assistive devices for the visually impaired center. Our object at first was very simple. There are many technological aids for the visually impaired, which were simply unavailable in Malta. All right, when I became visually impaired in my late 50s, I'm 65, all right, I used to go to the importers, and they would say, I look at the, the brochures, and they say, yes, we'll bring it to you. But can I test it before? Right? So I had to go to Britain to visit the Royal National Institute for the Blind, where there were all sorts of devices. All right? So we started to set up something similar in Malta, which we have set up, which we call a device. It's at the FITA Center in Plat Albaida, all right, which I hope you will visit. FITA, by the way, means Foundation for Information Technology and Accessibility. It's founded by MITA, everybody knows MITA, and CRPD. All right? So together, we set up this center. Obviously, it's not as big as RNIB. But in terms of depth, in terms of the equipment we've got, it's one of the best in Europe, definitely, because we have the very latest equipment. All right? So, for example, if RNIB or the Dutch will have 8 devices which do the same thing, we have 1, but it is the best of these 8. Okay? And the latest technology. All right? So that's advice. But then we realized that it wasn't enough. There are about 14,000 visually impaired persons in Malta. And that's a conservative estimate. That's not taking into account our tendency to diabetes. Okay? And of course, most of these are macular degeneration, which comes at a later stage. Not always. Not always. All right? Macular degeneration is when the rods and whatever they're called of the eye are deteriorating. Sometimes they start deteriorating at 40, sometimes at 60, sometimes at 70. You don't know. All right? But the vast majority are macular degeneration. Now we have a problem with that. And the problem, as usual, is not just the medical field. First of all, let's talk about the medical people. Well, we've got very good medical provision in Malta. We really have really good medical provision. All right? Now, but we always have a problem of size. So, for example, let me just give you an example. When I had glaucoma in this eye, glaucoma is when there's pressure on the back of the eye in such a way that it presses on the nerve and you see through a keyhole. So if I looked at you like that, I only see a tiny speck and very vague. Okay, that's glaucoma. Glaucoma can strike at any age. Right? Now, you found there was an operation which could have helped me, but the doctors in Malta did not have the specialized experience to do it. And the point is, I'm not criticizing them. What I'm trying to point out is that when you are in such a situation, I knew about this operation. I knew that it could be done in Britain. I had saved enough money to do it. But the process of the loss of sight was so fast, within 2 weeks, that I don't know what happened. I really don't know what happened. Right? Now, because loss of sight has devastating influences, not just on the sight itself, but on the psychological and social aspect of people. All right? So as I was saying, once we had started advice, we decided to go on with any area which we found problematical. Very often, there are about 67 visually impaired students in Malta. By visually impaired, we mean people, individuals, students, I mean, not people. We mean people whose eyesight can't be adjusted with technological means, with spectacles or glasses or whatever. All right? By the way, only 1 in 4 of visually impaired persons is completely blind, which is why there is the common question, why do blind people wear dark spectacles? Very, very simple. Light hurts. Light hurts. This light, this cold white light, hurts me. All right? So, sunlight hurts sometimes. All right? And we find out that very often people in the schools have no idea. And it's not their fault. All right? So every time there's a transition from an LSA to a pupil and their teacher, etc., there's a whole learning process, okay, which takes months. So we thought the least we can do is actually create a course for parents and one for educators, where they are exposed to what we mean by a holistic education. Now here I have to make a very clear distinction between the core curriculum, what you teach, okay, what is taught, and an extended curriculum. An extended curriculum would be the other things which can't be taught in a particular classroom, but which are extremely important in the development of the student. All right? Any questions? I mean, just make comments if you want.
So, why don't they change instead of the normally white to the daylight bulbs? To have the vision.
That's your job.
Pardon?
That's your job. Yes.
I cannot change them.
You have the duty. Sorry, now I get very emotional. All right? It is the duty of the school, not you as such, I'm talking about the school, of course, to take these things into account. And these are very important, especially in terms of universal design. Universal design means things, the design of the environment, which can help any student, not just a visually impaired student. Okay? Lights are very important. Spectacles are very important. All right? The color which you use on the white screen is extremely important. For example, up to 4 months ago, I could still read text 2830 on my computer. In the past few months, I've lost that. But I could not read it unless it was white on black. So I had to invert the colors. I've met teachers, I've met parents, I've met students who have no idea how to invert the colors on a computer screen. And that's such a waste. It's such a waste. All right? Now, yes, and there are other comments for the moment. So, yes, it's your duty. If there are any head teachers around, shame on you. All right? But thank you. Yes, any other comments up to now? All right. Now, we started out with a blank statement. What are the requirements of a student to develop education in a holistic way? All right? And we started out bottom up. So we first organized quantitative research, then qualitative research. We had quite a few, 20 hours of interviews, etc. And the teams came out naturally. Now, we also did, of course, internet research, etc. And by a very strange coincidence, what we found to be the main areas of concern in Malta turned out to be the main areas of concern in our Erasmus partners, Turkey, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, and Italy, and the United States, which has a very, very long history of helping the blind. The three most important places, traditions for associations for the blind, and it's not a coincidence, were the Germans, the British, the Canadians, and the Americans. For a very simple reason. There were so many hundreds of thousands of blind ex-soldiers in the First World War. So they had to cater for it. All right? They had to cater for it. I was saying that the teams came out naturally. So when they found out that other countries called it the extended core curriculum, we decided to call it the same thing. And these areas are very, very simple. One is a simple knowledge of the human eye. Very simple, very basic, very, very basic. All right? Have you ever come across parents who say, my son has something wrong with his eyes? What is it? I don't know. Well, this can make a big difference for you as educators to know not the exact details, but what is happening. All right? For example, I mentioned two conditions for the moment. One is glaucoma, as I said, when you see only a pinhole, or macular degeneration, where the center is lost, but you can see the periphery. In my case, I've got one thing here and the opposite side here. All right? Now, also something you have to remember. 95% of all visual conditions are degenerative. Most people with visual impairment go blind in the end. Now, the medical aspect. Now, unfortunately, I started out by saying that we have very good doctors, which we have, all right? Of course, if it's a very rare, disease, you have to go abroad because that's a function of our small size, all right? But doctors have that disease called the medical view. In other words, they're interested until they can do something for you. After that, okay. So there is very little help, either for the student or the visually impaired person, by the doctors, by the medical authorities afterwards. Of course, in education, we've got a lot of services, a huge number of services for such a small country, CDAU, etc., etc. All right? We don't even know exactly who is blind or not in Malta. We don't even have a registry of the blind in Malta. All right? So, there's a student who comes into your classroom, all right, and you're either his LSC or teacher or whatever, and he has to learn. Now, unfortunately, there's another disease now, and this disease is parental disease. It's which I call learned helplessness. Very, very often, parents and teachers, but especially parents, become so obsessed with their child that they don't believe things can improve. He's blind, that's all. It's like that old person who says, I'm 65 years old, I'm blind, I just go in a corner and wait to die. But there are so many other things one can do, all right? So, the areas which cropped up were, as I said, first, the human eye. Second, a little knowledge of how, what we call cognitive development, of how the mind of a blind child develops. It's different from the way of a normal child. Let's call normal, okay? A sighted child learns through 70% of learning, some say even more, is through visual means. The visually impaired child loses the 70% at the beginning. Later on, he can compensate. The brain compensates. All right? But it helps a lot to know exactly what is happening. All right? Exactly what is happening. So that's a technical component called cognitive development. Third area, which we found was important, and they're not in order now, right, is advocacy. Now we're talking at the moment not of self-advocacy, but parental and teacher advocacy. These kids need someone to be their advocates until they develop themselves. And unfortunately, sometimes they never do. And it's usually the force of overprotection by parents. Right? Sometimes by teachers. Sometimes, unfortunately, even indifference by teachers. Which is why I'm so very, very, very happy to see so many of you today. I never expected that. Thank you. All right? You find cases, for example, where a student wants to pass his, for example, A-levels, and his mother says everything must be oral, you know, which presents maths with a problem. All right? Okay, we'll make everything oral, but it will have to be endorsed. In other words, a certificate will have to sign that it was everything oral. All right? And she would say, no, I don't want to. All right? And being brilliant, I was consulted, and in my brilliance, I said, very simple. Use a screen reader. A screen reader is a reader which I'm sure you know about. There are so many of them. NVDA, JAWS, VoiceOver, the Apple VoiceOver. Everything that can be done on the computer is turned to sound. Everything. All right? You can do 96% at least of everything that can possibly be done on a computer through VoiceOver or these screenwriters. Again, I found that many students, teachers and LSAs of 13, 14-year-old students had never heard of a screen reader. How can the child afford to neglect that so important tool? All right? Once you have a screen reader, the whole world opens up to you. All right? Again, I use myself as an example, okay? Now, I was a teacher of English. Fact, I love eating, cooking, swimming, and reading. All right? Suddenly, one fine night, you find that you can't read anymore. It's a devastating feeling. Devastating. You can't teach anymore in the old way. Devastating feeling. But, because I had already been prepared for it, because I was very lucky, I could use a screen reader. So now I use audiobooks. All right? You see everything. All these stuff we're talking about. I will show them to you, okay? All right? So I use audiobooks now. I also do research. Most of the research I've done myself because through a screen reader. Okay? There are other implements which one can use to access print. For example, we've got a pair of spectacles called Orcam. You do this with your finger and it reads it out. Any one of you can download today, all right? Shanvi, what is called? Eyes with, not window eyes.
Seeing AI.
Seeing AI, and see what a remarkable device this is. Seeing AI. All right? It's free, it's downloadable. All right? There is both an Android version and an Apple version. AI, artificial intelligence.
Seeing AI.
All right? There's another device called KNDF Reader, which is very good, not too expensive. By the way, for a screen reader, download a free screen reader called NVDA. It's an excellent screen reader, not too sophisticated, all right? NVDA. We'll be telling you and giving you all this stuff. I'm just trying to show off, you know, tell you about these technologies, okay? So it's clear that we have to talk about technology as well. So we have a 2-hour session by the experts on the technology available. All right? And I was talking about advocacy. Yes, these students need to be developed in advocacy. Now, I was telling you about that mother who refused to let her child learn how to use a screen reader. So now he did not do his A-levels. He has no chance of a profession. He's very good, brilliant child. But because of such stupid things, I have the right to call them stupid because I'm blind, you know. All right. A whole career is messed up. Because with technology, many careers are open. Many careers are open. All right? Another area which, of course, is important is O&M, orientation and mobility. Now, this is not something which one can learn easily. It's more for the student himself. But we've got experts. We've got one right here now, all right, who can explain, will tell you, all right, what O&M is. Because orientation and mobility is not just using the stick, all right? It's how to hold a person, all right? And the younger they learn, the better. I was just given a hiding by Rita Criminale, Dr. Criminale here, because I was not using my cane properly. Why? Because I was holding on to my wife. And she said, when you're holding on to your wife, you should not use a cane. Yes, I know. All right? But one uses it anyway. Okay? So orientation and mobility is important, just to understand. For example, how can we adjust the class? I mentioned lights, for example. That's the environment. Okay? One of the things which in the end, when I was teaching, really bugged me was that at the end of the marble staircase, there was no black strip. And believe you me, going upstairs is much easier than going downstairs. Right? People forget that. People forget that. We have people who can go to your school, your classroom, and tell you what is the best way to do things. All right? Obviously, there's also everyday living. All right? It's how does a student, a blind student, learn to cope with ordinary things? Cooking, for example. Can he cook? Yes. Can he become independent and live on his own? Of course, you will meet people who have lived on their own for years. All right? But it's never entirely easy. For example, I said that I used to love cooking. And a lot of the cooking I did at home for my kids was done by myself. But now I can't see the colors. I don't know if an onion has been browned or not. I have to smell it. All right? And this causes accidents sometimes. You're peeling a potato, you think you've peeled it, and then you find you haven't peeled it correctly. All right? How do you use a fork and spoon on spaghetti if you can't see the plate? All these things are extremely important. Right? And these things are relevant also to the school. Right? So we think you should become aware of these things. Very often one finds that a student is told he's visually impaired, he can't do chemistry because he can't see the colors, and he can't see how much liquid he's poured in. All right? When for 10 euros, you can buy a sort of bottle or whatever, a flask, which tells you how much liquid has been poured in. It tells you the exact color of what you want. It weighs things for you. All right? All these things which we take for granted and which we think are not available for a student, any visually impaired student, are possible with technology, training, and above all, awareness, being aware that they exist. And just a tiny little bit of encouragement. All right? Just a tiny little bit of encouragement. Okay? A friend of mine no longer sweeps his house because he's got a robot to do it for him. Okay? Anyway, that's obvious. Another area, and these are now really important areas, is socialization and psychological preparedness. It is said that in most cases, the real cause of non-achievement in education is lack of self-confidence. If I ask you honestly, how many of you feel that it would have been better for you if you had felt self-confident? Right? I'm sure most of you would say yes, it would have been better. Can you imagine how more difficult it is for a visually impaired child? Right? So we need to be aware of techniques of improving improving this self-confidence. Let's call it self-confidence. You can call it a lot of ways. Some call it locus of control, some call it whatever. All right? And this, of course, also relates to socialization. And here, the work of the teacher is extremely important. All right? I was going to tell you an incident, and I am going to tell you about the incident, which really made me mad. I have a friend of mine who's 12 years old. He's visually impaired, and he's also got dyslexia. He can't see the whiteboard, okay? And of course, he isn't very literate, he's considered ignorant. While I've done his IQ scores, he's not ignorant at all, okay? Like very fast on the upkeep. Doesn't have the perfect parental background to help him, all right? Not the lab there. And one of his teachers said to him, copy down this thing on the whatever, on the whiteboard, for those who can. That's cruel. That's very cruel. All right? And these things occur all the time. Even if she didn't do it deliberately. Okay? The child interpreted it that way. Why the hell should he learn anything? Why should he? So socialization, the social psychological aspect is at the core of what we are to do. You can see how this is linked to advocacy. You can see how this is linked to orientation and mobility, which enables him to navigate the physical space. You can see how this is related to ordinary living. All right? Now, another area is leisure. Again, we have problems. Sometimes it's overprotection. Sometimes not having the facilities. Sometimes pure ignorance. Sometimes. All right. So we'll have to discuss that. Now, where that module is concerned, the 1 hour module, we won't be giving solutions. We'll be having a little theoretical aspects about it, and then case studies to see how, in an actual case study, we can help a student. All right? Basically, we've got tips for teachers today, okay? And basically, that's the course. All right? Basically, that's the course. Yes? Yes, I forgot that. All right, now comes the cruel part. How of you are going to be blindfolded? Why? Because we want you to experience this. Yes. Right, 2 things. I just mentioned braille or no braille. This is a very big problem because up to 30 years ago, before the age of the computer, almost every blind person attended special schools. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages to that. The research clearly shows that with visual impairment at least, integration, complete integration, if ever that is possible, or assimilation, is much, much better. But there will be no places as such where they can actually learn Braille. Now, with the aid of the computer, screen reader, who needs Braille? They say everything is written, can be heard. That's a mistake. Again, the research very clearly shows, all right, that young children, young people who have not learned Braille have very great difficulties in literacy. Now, that's because we know much more about what literacy is nowadays. Literacy is not simply knowing how to read. Literacy is a process which affects the structure of the mind. Now, if you can't see things, you just hear them, the cortical reaction, or whatever you want to call it, is very different from using other senses, like sight and touch. So, for example, students who did not learn Braille well, especially in English, find spelling very, very difficult. Much, much more important, all right? If you simply hear stories, and you know that the most important form of learning is the story mode, all right? And that we learn and create stories. An essay, any essay, is a story, for example. All right? You need these cognitive literary skills. So one of the things which you should discuss with the parents is Braille, please. Nobody can decide except the parents and the students themselves. But please, it's a very important issue. Now, second, your experiences as blind people. Yes, who wants to start? Yes?
I had the best card I could have.
Rita Criminale, it's not fair. It's not fair.
Anzi, anche la rasa, c'è con lo
At first I was afraid, though, but she reassured me if I follow her instructions, I'll be okay. And I felt okay. I felt very safe with her.
But the feeling of loss, that's very, very difficult, isn't it?
But I knew the place quite well. When we were coming in, I already knew the place. Well,
In fact, I had planned that everybody will be blindfolded
from outside,
and yet you mess about and fall and whatever, but better counsels prevail. Other experiences, how did you feel? Yes?
As an independent person, and when I got that black blind, I was totally confused. I felt nervous. I felt I was going to have a panic attack.
Yes.
It's not my fault.
Of course it's not your fault. That's exactly what we planned. It's exactly what we planned.
It's not
A nice experience, isn't it?
no.
But let me tell you something, okay?
Maybe because I was shocked as well.
Now, let me tell you something, all right? Again, to my own experience and reading. People of my age were brought up on the Walgrave, and there were two poems, if I remember. One of them was called The Blind Boy. Any of you remember it?
Yes.
Joyce, I think you can repeat it. But it's about this boy who asks, oh, what is that thing called light? He doesn't know. So very often, people who are younger than me say it must be very hard for you because you lost your sight at a later age. And I think it must be very hard for them because they've never appreciated the beauty of a marigold or the colors of a bee or the beautiful colors of swimming or whatever. All right? The second poem, which perhaps you may remember, is when I consider how my light is spent, half my days, by Milton. He lost his sight at an older age. okay, and he discusses what remains of his life, what is left after he's lost his sight. And he says that one talent which is dead to hide, in his case, poetry. But everybody has got a talent. And if you lose your talent, if you throw away your talent because of blindness, then you're really blind. And not just blind, but bloody stupid. Okay? Another thing I wanted to mention is that you get used to it, you know. Up to 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I used to say that when I lose my sight completely, or nearly lose my sight completely, I commit suicide. I was very calm about it, but I got used to it. Because I got used to it because I'm very, very lucky.
But you've got support. You have to have some.
Exactly. Once you have support,
You've got to have
you've got everything. Just pity those who don't have no support. And we have to give them that support. All right? Yeah. That's enough.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am an optometrist. I'm Anissa Nazar. I work at Mater Dei. And hopefully I will help you to understand how the eye works. So if you find any difficulties or understanding it, just hands up, okay? So, let's start. Anyone knows how we get the light? How we perceive the light in our eyes? Anyone? No. All right. Now, this is the eyeball. Okay? Excuse me?
Enlarge. You enlarge.
To
view it as a...
from here.
If I can do it. Yep. Yeah.
No, you just pass through.
Very
Go to the left.
fine. Basically, we have the external lens of the eye, which is the external surface, which is called cornea. It's a transparent layer with 5 layers, which provide our eyes nutrition, protection, and help with the refraction. So, when the light arrives to our eyes, the first thing it does is to refract to the first lens. Okay? Then, it passes through, and we have the anterior chamber. You see this cup is called, inside there is aqueous humor. That is another layer that is transparent, which means no blood vessel, completely transparent, and it contains just protein. Then, third lens, the lens, that is basically the main lens that we have, is called lens when you are young. With the age process, it becomes cataract. Then it's not transparent anymore. So if one of these 3 lenses is not transparent for any other reason that I'm not gonna explain, then we don't perceive the proper light. And without light, no vision. We're blind. Okay? So this can be one of the conditions that can make you feel disabled in a way of moving. So if you have one of these conditions, the feeling you have is that you are underwater, which means you are able to see around, but not contour. So basically, what you will see, sorry, this is a face, okay? You see the contour. If cornea, aqueous humor, or the lens are not anymore transparent or defective anyway, we don't see this. We see something, but not defined. We cannot define it. conditions that affect this can be cataracta. In kids, is presented as a congenital cataracta, and it affects the lens. All right? This is the lens. I'm putting it bigger here. Okay? Kids, sometimes, when they are still as a fetus, they might develop congenital cataract. So this lens, instead of being transparent, will be a bit grayish or white. So it means that the light just make it easy for you to understand. So when the light passes through, okay, it passes the cornea, the first lens, right? It passes the aqueous humor, and it's still transparent, it's fine, and arrive here. If the light doesn't pass from here, we'll never arrive to the back of the eye, which is the retina. No light, no vision. Okay? And this happens with kids. This is one of the conditions that we can find in kids. Now, let's move on. I'm gonna try to get cataract, one factor. Okay? Then we were talking about the other lens, aqueous humor, which is just a chamber. This is just a chamber, anterior chamber we call it, with water, let's say water. Okay? It's a transparent liquid with the protein concentration. Okay? What happens? If you have a condition called glaucoma, glaucoma means high pressure of the eye. Now, from this part of the eye, we produce the aqueous humor. Okay, so this aqueous humor, this liquid, fluid, is produced continuously, and it recycles. So it passes from this down here, circulate here, and it goes back there. So it's a circulation continuously. Sometimes, if you see this corner, we have a corner here, and it's open, so the fluid can pass. Sometimes, when this is not anymore open, instead of being like this, it becomes narrow, the fluid doesn't pass properly. So this starts creating pressure, because it's like a balloon. If you put more air, and the air is closed, the balloon will just become bigger and bigger. Then more air you put, bigger it will become, and then it can explode. But that is a balloon. With the eye, we don't have an explosion, but we have glaucoma. So the eye pressure, let's say this is the retina, okay? Sorry for my drawing. It's wrong. You see the eye. Inside, okay, that is what is contained inside. So if there is just pressure, this pressure, it's gonna pressure on the nerve in the back of the eye. You see that? Is everyone looking at it? Okay. Basically, the optic nerve here is like our plug with our brain. So you imagine our eyes. So we have 1, 2, and we have our plug, 2 of them. One goes right, right to left and the one to left to right. So imagine if you have these two eyes and the plug is broken because there is too much pressure, that's it, you are disconnected. Which means you can become blind. And this is the condition of Mr. Joseph. So, apart from this condition, Mr. Joseph,
You are telling us that you were born with glaucoma?
no, I'm telling you that if anatomically this corner becomes narrow, the fluid that usually circulates naturally and continuously, it doesn't circulate anymore, it stops. So
Okay, that's
it's just producing until the pressure is so big that usually in people with glaucoma you will see this big eye, red, okay? From outside, you see them like that, but the patient doesn't feel anything. It's asymptomatic, so actually you don't even notice it until you lose first the peripheral vision. So you start hitting corners, you walk and you're like, oops, another corner. This is how it starts. Then you go for a checkup and still, but as a condition,
What makes it become narrow?
that can be anatomically, congenital, family history. That is how we are studying it. But, for example, if there is a family history, basically, let's say a family of 5 girls and 1 guy, okay? The girl, most of them will be exposed to have glaucoma, or the children, the female children, because it can be chromosomal disorder, can be genetic. There are different reasons, but we don't know yet which cause it. Okay? So basically what we do, if you have family history of glaucoma, you just check it every year, especially women, because when you notice it, it's too late. As a condition, apart seeing this instead of a full picture, you start developing also dry eyes, because you take medication for that. You take medication, which helps to reduce the pressure, but from the other side then affect the nourish of the eye, so the eyes become dry and then you feel pain. And Mr. Joseph feels the pain, especially from the cold light. So what you do if you have a kid with this condition? How you deal with a kid with this condition? Any idea?
Change the light.
First, yes, that's a good idea. What else you can do? What do you think we can do more to help kids? Okay.
Can anything be done through surgery?
Excuse me?
If you catch it at early stages, can anything be done through
Yes, can
surgery?
be done something. Of course, can be done.
Intervene here
Yes, sure.
as the real expert.
Yes.
All right. When I first noticed that I had glaucoma, they gave me drops, lots of drops. At first, it worked, it decreased. If the pressure is over 23, it becomes damaging. All right? So it decreased till 18, 19. But after a couple of years, in my case, they couldn't prevent it. It went up. So what they do is there is an operation named after a Maltese, I think, Preziosi, where they slit the eye, the back of the eye, so that there is a drainage. But very often, with some people, it closes again. I had about 11 operations in this eye, and they all close again. The last one closes I said in 2 weeks. All right? So that was much too late. What they do nowadays is that they have a sort of valve, a plastic valve, which tries to keep it open. So with glaucoma, you have to catch it as early as possible.
That's why if any one of you in your family has family history of glaucoma, you should check it every year,
Okay.
especially females.
As some of you noticed, I've been told by my wife that I was asking her to check my eyesight. In this case, when I don't have glaucoma, it's softer than in this eyeball where I have glaucoma. And you can feel it's much harder.
One of the tests you can do yourself at home is stand in front of the mirror, closing your eyes, and with these two fingers, you just do this. You don't do. No, you have to be gentle. You just touch your bowl, close your eyes like you're looking at your shoes, okay? And do little pressure. If by doing pressure you feel going a bit deeper or less, that is fine. If by touching is hard and even you press, it doesn't move anything, then you must check it immediately. Right. First, you need to close your eyes.
How I'm going to say what
You
you are going
will
to
not
do?
see, you will see from your feet, from your fingers.
All right, I go.
That is not your eye, that is your phone. You close your eyes, look at your shoes, gently press the ball. Gently. Don't do too much pressure. Okay? If you slightly feel some movement, it is fine. It is how it's supposed to be. If by touching, your eyeball is very hard, feel it? And we check it. Okay?
You're not about the specialist, has to check it for me.
Okay.
Very well done.
Let me just. Now,
Can glaucoma cause retinitis?
can.
Again, my dad is not let's touch that glaucoma together.
Yeah. Now, let's go to your question. If you develop glaucoma, the pressure will be here. This part is called optic nerve, which is our part with our brain. Without the optic nerve working, the light will never arrive. And even though arrive, it will not be, the connection will not have the right signal. So, if you have pressure, high pressure, it will press here. If the pressure, it damages the nerve, and there is no going back in that, the vision is gone. This is glaucoma pressure. Let's talk about retinal pressure. Apart doing pressure here, glaucoma do pressure also here, Okay, but sometimes from one part of it, the retina, which is this layer here, can detach here or here. Easily can start here. And since the glaucoma first attacks the peripheral vision, you might find it in the first step here. Okay? When you have retinal detachment, basically what you see, you might see some white flashes. At dark, at night, if you are home and you have your eyes closed, even you're sleeping, you might notice this white flash. It's temporary. And you see, if you see it with closed eyes, you don't wait. Okay? Let's say, the retina. Let me show you something from here so it will be easier. Does anyone knows how we perceive colors and vision?
There's the drops and cones in the
Okay.
retina,
Very
and they
good.
transform the light into energy or like electricity or whatever goes to the optic nerve and goes to
All
the brain.
this happen in this part, the retina. On the retina, we have nutriment for our eyes, because we have the vessels, arterial vessel, vein, and the photoreceptor, where you see the cone and rods. The cones are the ones responsible for the colors, so they work in daylight. The rods, they work in the opposite. They activate only in a lower light, scotopic vision. Now, all these cones and photoreceptors, rods in general, they are in the retina. But there is one portion of the retina called macula, which is that little point. That little point is our central vision, where we see this, not this, central vision. And is the place when we have the maximum visual acuity, we call it, because we have the focus. When we see in front of us, we see the camera, I'm in focus, but I'm not focusing in all of it. So basically I'm focusing here, and this I can do it because of the macula. And then I have the peripheral vision, which is not that much in focus. Have you ever tried to do a picture with the phone? Well, if you take a picture, you will see that when you click on the center of the screen, you have the focus on the center, right? That is our eyes, it works like that. So in this portion here, we have the cones. The cones are the photoreceptor that activate in daylight. So if we don't have light, we don't have central vision. Okay? And the cones are basically only here. It's the high concentration. In all the other portion of the retina, this, we have the rods. Okay? So, to make it simple, if the retinal detachment happens here, again, in a bad way I'm saying this, but we're done with that, because there is no way back. Still, we don't have a bionic eye, but there are some therapies. We do some attachment of the retina with oil, with gas, because sometimes we can interfere with the surgery, and we do a ball of air here that make pressure here and tell the retina attach again. Okay, I don't know. Let me see if I can make it. Anyone is confused? I'm trying to not give you a lot of information, so if you have questions, just stop me and ask me, okay? Yeah.
I would like to ask you, can you give us more information regarding the strategies that we can use to
The?
help students?
Yes. Before you go to the strategies, that comes off. To know a bit about it.
After this lecture, we
Oh,
started.
sorry.
Need to know about how it works. Because people come to me and say like, oh, I don't see anything. Like, what do you mean? You see that? Yes. Ah, you see. Well, people that have disability with vision, even though they see something, doesn't mean they are seeing you. We have the impression we are seeing because we have some light. Because the light can arrive through the cataract. If the light arrives to a patient with a cataract, it will arrive like this. And this is the retina. Sorry for the drawing, but this is the retina. And the light is dispersed. It's spread. Okay? But if there is no cataract, so the lens is clean, let's say like that, the light will arrive to this point here where we have the macula, then we have vision. Now, the patient with cataract, the kid with cataract, basically the kid with cataract will have an intervention. We have a surgery, we do implant, cataract implant, and if it's done in between 5, 11 years old, the kid can still learn how to use properly the eye, but needs training. So if you have a kid that had a cataract surgery, the kid probably will need some training, some help. So as a teacher, first you need to understand what's going on, because for him, it will be very easy to look at the distance, but then the kid will not be able to read properly clear for near vision, because this lens here, the cataract, when it's natural, is sustained by this muscle here, and they are natural. When we do implant, this muscle doesn't work on the artificial lens. But basically, let me explain it here. This is the lens, okay? This lens, how it works is that this lens can become bigger and thinner. This is called accommodation. This is a process that helps us to focus in a different distance. So if we have the natural eye, we just look far and near, we don't do anything. But if this is an artificial lens, for reading you will have problem. So in that case, the kid should be able to have some tools, and probably he will have reading glasses. So you will need to find the right distance for the kid to be properly comfortable with a desk and with his friends anyway, because probably he will not read like this, but he will read like this. Okay? This is something. But this, I'm going to tell you how to deal with that. So, can I ask you something? At school, you have the board, like I have this, right? Board, how is the disposition of the class? You have windows or not?
Yes. With a lot of sunshine.
Okay, this is something we must change. Why? Because a kid with cataract implant will see very clear, but very bright. If you have a lot of light, the kid will have a lot of reflection. So if you see a kid doing this is very common. first you change the light. Then you send it for an eye test. Okay? I'm gonna describe the condition of Mr. Kamki now, which is a glaucoma. Glaucoma or retinal detachment or cataract. They are all disabilities that limit us to do what we want without any help. So you have to understand that kids are already not comfortable with that. They are kids, they want to play, they want to do their own stuff. So we have to help them in a way. So at school, what I learned that if a kid is not seeing properly, first I change his place. He doesn't stay in the back, he stays here, in front of me, so I can see what he's doing. And I can actually see how he's dealing, because every kid is different. Another thing that you can do as a teacher, you can ask your school director some tools. As a classroom with kids, you're supposed to have the board and the desk with this inclination. Not a plan one. If you have a plan one, your body will do this. Am I right? Yes. This. I'm straight. Is that correct? Another thing you should learn. That's not good. That is something you should change. You change the desk first, and you change the light. The light, if you have windows, or you either close the windows or you have curtain. Curtain, because the windows create this. You see the reflection if you move? If you see it in a school, when you have the windows there, you have reflection. Reflection with a kid with cataract. That's not good at all, because it's so bright that the kid will do this. If you see a kid doing this, it's about the light. Okay? So, point one. Point two. The desk. You change it. Because the thing is, if we can do something, we try to do it, right? Apart that, you deal every day with kids that they have their own handwriting. One is right, one is left, right? Joke. But it's very important for a kid when he writes. I'm gonna show you from here. I am right-handed, okay? So if I write with the right, you can try on your desk there. You will see a lot of shadow in your paper or book, okay? When you have shadow, your body will turn like this, because you really want to see it. And there is the shadow of the biro, and it's because the light is coming from the window. It's lateral light. So this light is actually projecting shadow. So apart having shadow, the consequence is that I will correct my posture. So I will do this. I will be close to the desk, with the consequences that even though I have LTI, without any of this, I will develop short-sightedness or astigmatism or other defect. Okay? Oh yes, thank you. So another tip for you teachers is if you cannot change the windows, so you cannot destroy the windows because they are there, then make sure you can use a desk light. So if the kid is right-handed, you put the light on the opposite side. So you put it on the left. If you put it on the left, you delete the shadow.
can mention cortical problems.
Nystagmus? Yes, it can. There are so many
Yes, I know. But I will not specifically.
specifically nystagmus. Now, nystagmus is a condition of the eye where the muscle, the eye ball, which is moved from our external eye muscle and internal muscle. Usually we have stable eye position, so they are coordinated so when they are functioning properly. Sometimes it's not like that. So the muscle doesn't respond properly to our neurological signals. So there is no coordination between neuro and eye motility. So basically, the condition you see is that a kid or a patient is not able to maintain the eye position. So you see this little shaking of the eye. And it's very uncomfortable. It's very uncomfortable. Not just for the kid, it's a neurological strain. It's an everyday strain. So if you deal ever with a kid like this, you should be first very patient and understand that the kid is in pain, brain pain. Because he's trying to maintain the focus here, but he cannot do that. It's like this. So imagine all the day your muscles are in tension. So you will have headache, you will hate anyone because you don't tolerate. So consider this.
What causes that?
Genetic, neural disorder. It can be genetic, but is mostly neurological disorder. Because the eye, it developed properly, but somehow the muscle that's supposed to keep it steady, it doesn't respond with the information of our brain, the cortical area, which is where we have all the processing of the light information. The light that we receive, because we have the light, we receive it through the lens. So the light passes through our lens, the lens I was explaining, and right to the retina, and through the receptor, the neural cords, they have this electrical and chemical reaction, and they all go to the cortical side that is back here. From the top, this is our eye. Okay, cortical area. Okay, imagine from the top. Okay, so imagine this eye is sustained from muscle. This as well. If this is all the time checking, the information are not complete, are half of it. So they are mixed up. So the time they arrive here, you have X, 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 Y information. You don't have a clear information. Okay, it's very confused. Yes?
What if they have not the muscle is still, but it's shorter?
That can be that can develop astigmatism.
Yes.
Strabism.
And what's that?
Strabism is eye deviation. So the eyes are straight. Instead of being straight, the eye is here. Because one of them is pulling more this way, and the other is shorter. So imagine you have the ball here. This is equal. When one is shorter, okay, one pulls.
It can be like that, or it can go to the other side, right?
Yes. But there is something that can be done.
What can be done?
That can be done when you are kid.
So if you're an adult, you can't do
When you're
anything?
adult, you can try, But the result is not the same quality that you obtain when you are a kid. Because when you're a kid, you're elastic, you're flexible, you're developing. So
Well, actually, what I learned is that they learn to look by turning their head instead of turning their eye because they can't turn.
that happens if you cannot recover that. But usually the kid between 0 and 11 years old, if they develop strabismus, which is this condition, which is eye deviation, this deviation.
Okay. Was there a cure for it 24 years ago?
Look, about the therapy, it changed a lot. Okay, but even before there were therapy, the difference was that before we were treating it only by surgery. Now, apart doing surgery with kids when they do strabismus surgery, so they do a knot on the eye muscle or they cut. After that, you need to do some training. So sometimes, even if you do a treatment after the limit of the age, so after 11, you still can have some better result than 20 years ago, that's for sure. Because we do visual training nowadays. So we do some exercise.
It had a lot of risks when they operated on the eye muscle, they told me.
Not if you have the right information, because you do some calculation. Every muscle, every inch of it, millimeter, micron actually. We work in micron with muscle. We don't have this inch is huge. We work with micron or nanometer. These are the millesimo unit of the meter. Okay. This is a very microscopic length, okay? So about that, I can tell for sure that after 20 years, there is a big gap. About the result, yes, we treat kids, we do training, especially with kids. The best result you can have is between 0 and 11. That's why when you have kids, you start doing the first eye test at 3 years old. Just continue. If you see your kid taking a tool or a game and he does this, that is a sign, okay? Or
But is it not correct to say that you have to pick up squints before 3 years, before 1 year?
you can, yes, you can.
Yeah, I mean, waiting to 11 is a bit late, I think. Eh?
No, I'm telling you, between 0 and 11, okay, is the age that you can have a total recovery.
Right.
If you find out about it, because there are also others, you can have
But you aim
strabismus,
to see them before 3 years, I think.
but then you notice it already. So there are cases of kids when you see, when they are born, already at 3 months, you
Yeah.
can see something. But sometimes the squint, you don't see it because, you know, we
Yes,
see
yes,
these
yes.
cute kids with big eyes and we're like, oh, they're
And in
big.
your experience, we see lots of children with nystagmus. Do you consider them visually impaired in the children that you see? Most children with nystagmus, is it correct to say that they are not visually impaired? Because we've had this discussion here in the past. You know, ophthalmologists do not want to produce reports that these children have visual impairment. They simply say nystagmus is a sign, not a conclusion that the child is visually impaired.
Child has a visual impairment.
He has a visual impairment.
That is a visual impairment.
Right.
Because the point is that if you don't have a normal condition,
Yeah.
that is not normal condition. You suffer from headache all your life.
Yeah.
I have a friend that has nystagmus. He didn't accept it yet. He's 31 years old. He doesn't accept the fact that he has nystagmus. He doesn't let anyone to touch him because he feels people treat him as a disabled person.
Right.
And he changes glasses. He does glasses with tinted because they feel uncomfortable. So how you can consider this as a not impaired?
But if you test his visual acuity, would it be...
Yes, but you have visual acuity, but it's like you are having one picture stable and one is shaking. It's shaking. I'm gonna vomit after 10 minutes.
Well, that's
That
important.
I'm not used. But if I think about it, I just feel sick about it.
We have had problems here that our therapist teacher...
Right?
Yeah.
Just I ask if there is any question or...
No, just.
We have
Are there
time for
any
question
questions?
or...
I think somebody wanted to talk about cortical impairment, right?
That is...
Yeah, the brain, when there is a cortical blindness.
Will you understand?
Okay, I think what we can conclude is definitely is very complex. Two, definitely to help the child, we have to understand what the condition is. Otherwise, we don't help.
Going back to the classroom setting, when I was blindfolded, I realized that I was relying more on hearing.
Yes.
And so I think it's very important that the classroom and the peers, they are told in advance to be quiet, because every little cue, the people with visual impairment,
Yes.
they cues from even the slightest noise.
Exactly. And that's why the position of the school is important. For example, the worst school I've ever taught in was what is now MCAST, where there are so many cars going up and down. And when we used to complain, the director used to say, we'll plant trees and then there will be no noise, which was rubbish. It only changed a bit when they introduced double glazing. All right? But yes, echoes are very disturbing. Okay? Sometimes people talk around you and you can't understand anything. Now, just another myth. Some people say that once you're blind, your hearing becomes better. I did not find it so. What I found was once you become blind, you're more aware of hearing. You're much more aware of the importance of hearing. But then you become aware of the importance of touch. All right, as well. For example, at the moment, this is silly, but at the moment, I'm spending a lot of time in my garden in the sun. I never used to spend time in the sun, but now the sun is comfortable because it's something I can feel, not something I can see. Okay? Smells become extremely important. All right? So. All right?
And you're fine.
Yes, I'm fine. It depends on the kind of glasses. Also be careful about that, but they'll be talking about them later on, I hope. Okay, there are so many. These are cocoons, just 30 pounds, much better than the ones you buy commercially for 100. Okay? Thank you.
I don't know if it was too much or too
I
Do you have question? Yes.
And when due to glaucoma, the eyes are dry, and the glaucoma is treated, and
Yes.
it's being treated over and over. But the thing is, that the eyes are dry, so I'm talking of my husband's problem, because he has glaucoma.
So you have dry eyes.
So he has dry eyes, and the dry eyes start to heal, and he has to go for treatment. But do you think that although the situation is being treated, do you think that in time he can become blind? No, not at all.
If the pressure is under control
It is.
and it doesn't press on the nerve, that is not about the dryness, that is a consequence of the therapy. The only thing you can do with dryness is using that helps to maintain a bit of lubrication. Okay? And this is, you are dependent on us. You just need to do it over and over because you have to We didn't talk about it, there was no time, but with the diabetic retinopathy, you have to imagine a person that you have a picture like this, and imagine you have the picture with black holes. Because with diabetic retinopathy, the vessel that we have in the back of the eye, they are very fragile. Because our body needs oxygen. Because when you are diabetic, you need more oxygen. So we have this weak vessel that they create, but they break easily. And when they break inside the eye, when we have the gel. The ball, we have the gel inside. Well, the gel it just keeps the clump of cells or the blood clot. Okay? So basically, what you see is like you have this picture and you see these black dots, stable. If you have an hemorrhage, so one of the vessels breaks, then you see you have this picture with this big dot. Can be big, can be small, can be up, down, or maybe you don't notice it because it's in the peripheral area. But when it's central, that is the problem, because the patient see this, but not in front, or part of it, portion. Okay, and that is a problem. And with lenses, with glasses, because this is what I do, I help with glasses. There is no much I can do with the glasses. Yes. Because it's a temporary. Later on, the eye itself, the system will absorb it and it will disappear, but then it takes time. Yeah, I don't know if you have other questions.
Can I add one comment? Because you said that when children have squint when they are still babies,
Yes.
and it's no big deal. But there can be other problems. Right now I'm saying I went to the hospital because my son had squint at first, and then he was diagnosed with retinoblastoma. So I think, in my opinion, as from the medical side, they are not giving the whole attention when there are problems with eyesight. I mean, alright, when they are babies, nothing can be done. You can't say if the child is seeing or not.
Yes.
But yes, squint is something to be considered.
Squint is obviously something that we care, at least.
Usually it is neglected because they say that the baby, it has to be 1 year
Squint
plus.
is very important. Squint
That's
is
why.
very important. Because if you have a squint in infantile age, it means that one eye is in standby. So basically you are not letting that eye develop properly.
In fact, when we discovered that he suffered from retinoblastoma, it was too late. One eye has been removed already. But that's because of, well, I think it was from negligence, because it was pointed out. This could have been prevented, maybe.
Unfortunately, I don't know your case
It's
personally.
okay.
But one of the reasons that you have visual impaired is strabismus. Because when you have strabismus or lazy eye, because lazy eye is when the eye it's developed properly, but because of high astigmatism, you're not correcting it very well, so it doesn't force himself to improve. It just stays there. But the eye is healthy. In case of strabismus, we have healthy eye, but the muscles are not strong enough to keep it straight. So we have the deviation. And it is the same problem. The eye doesn't have the chance to develop properly because it doesn't have the same input. That's why it is important.
There are
Sure, it's important.
a lot of teachers here, I mean, even the general public, the general public should be aware of certain symptoms and signs.
That's exactly what we're trying to do here.
This is what I'm trying to do. I need you, teacher, to watch kids. Because if you see a kid... Sorry, I'm gonna
If
show
any
you.
of you feel that we after the course, we need further sessions in any one of them, all right? Just call us and we'll try to arrange them, all right?
One of the signs, for example. Sorry, I interrupted.
That's all right.
If you see a kid doing this, why? If you see a kid, instead of looking straight, is sideways, or the other way, which is a sign of astigmatism. Okay? When you see a kid going this way to the television, there's definitely a problem. Another thing is the shoulders. We don't pay much attention to that, but the shoulders are, for me, are a sign. We have kids that they are like this or like this. This, I'm optometrist, so I look a bit at the posture, all of it. This is a sign that the kid is closing himself, which means that he wants to be closer to this anything, which is a book or whatever. So it will have he will have this tendency. This. When you see a kid confident, it's a difference.
Both parenting and education. Now, as a parent, I had 3 children. None of them came with an Android. It was hit or miss. Any of you that are parents know what I mean. You have your child, and you have to try and work out things. You don't have any direction. You learn as you go along. You're self-taught. As an educator, I've had lots of training and lots of input. Okay? However, all the training I did, or the education I had, did not prepare me for the uniqueness of each student that passed with me. I think you feel that. Every child was unique, and no amount of training prepared me for this. It didn't prepare me for the effect that they had on my life. It didn't prepare me for the effect I had on their life. And I realized that that is a strong effect when now, recently, I did some research with adults, and one of these adults, who's a very successful businessman right now, told me, you know, I became successful in spite of some of my teachers and because of 2 others. Because when I was young and at school, this particular person had a profile of dyslexia. And when I was at school, my report cards used to say, doesn't try hard enough, can do better, will never amount to much. So that's what I always do. Then I had 2 teachers. One said he will get there eventually, but in his own way. And the other one said he's very persistent, and that will see him through. So, but however, even though I'm a really successful businessman, running 3 companies, every time I have a new venture, I have to sit myself down and recount all my successes. Because what the teacher tells you is like a worm inside you, he said, that keeps on going round and round and round, and you never get rid of it. Because the teacher is authority. So you are all authority, and you are responsible. And you know this. I'm repeating what you know. I think that the fact that you are all here means that you are all ready to find the tools to help all your students. Okay? So, for example, all our students, there are 4 things we try and give our students. We try and give them reassurance that they're lovable. We try and give them the confidence that they're capable, don't we? We give them praise that they do a job well. Okay? We give them all these things. So we have to give them to all of them. No. So you need to have it in you that your planning, your teaching is going to be for all the class. And what we have to avoid is a fear of unknown. A fear that because the student is visually impaired, I'm not going to teach him. No. I don't know how many of you have done universal design for learning. Yes? Not one of my lectures, those are mentioned. Not what I was. No. In universal design for learning, you plan not for all the students sort of visually impaired or hard. No. No way. You plan for the way that all your students learn differently. Just because a person is fully sighted does not mean that he learns best with what he sees. Forget it. There are many students in your class who learn with what they hear, with what they touch, hands-on. So when you plan for all of them, including students who are visually impaired or blind. That I know you've heard Joe talking about what it means for a person to be visually impaired or blind. I still would like you to listen to a couple of people. Okay? Maybe there are some questions you would like to ask, but you are too embarrassed to ask them. Maybe you think these questions are going to be a bit funny. However, I am going. The sound isn't connected. That one. All right.
My name is Matt Potts, and I'm a piano player. I'm Cindy, and I'm a PhD student. Yeah, I am. Total blind. I was born totally blind.
Can you hear this?
Oh my god, annoying things people ask. How much time do you think we have today? How do you do your job? How can you find the bus? You're blind. Do you organize people's voices? Can I pray for you? Can I bless you? How do blind people have sex? Well, some of the most intimate things are done in the dark anyway. Think about it. See in the sun, have you seen any light? You can see. Sir, how long have you been visually blind? And yeah, that. Like, it's okay. People want to know how I've lost my vision. And, like, I don't really want to talk about that, Mr. You know? I think that's a very personal question, and usually it's irrelevant. You know, let's just be real. The elephant's in the room. I feel like they're probably imagining that they don't know what they would do or how they would function if they lost their vision, so they like can't even articulate a specific question to ask me.
Yes, there's a lot. If I am walking down the street trying to find an establishment or an address, but I'm confused, I'll say, oh, excuse me, I can hear people walking by. They won't answer. They'll just...
People ask me, so how do you go to the bathroom? I don't know, I was just,
Okay? All right, so what should those questions have told you? Those people that were talking, were they very different to you and me? Or to you? Do you think that as people they are different? I am a visually impaired person. I wasn't always visually impaired, but I've always had difficulties. I've had to make some changes. I like going out to dinner. I like having a glass of wine when I go out to eat. I made a change. I used to drink white wine, now I drink red, so that I won't drop the glass. I'm still the same person. Okay? So, persons first. Who are they? Who are we? Okay? Individuals first. Okay. Do you think that the social needs of persons with visual impairment change?
Changes if they want it to change. They have to
All
have
right.
concerns.
What else? Do they want you to interact with them or with their impairment? And do you find that easy to do?
No.
When you were blindfolded, did you feel exposed
Yes.
and vulnerable?
Yes.
So when you interact with a person with visual impairment, do you think that's how they're feeling as well? You won't realize it, but there's an anxiety. So the first thing you have to do is reassure, isn't it? Reassure that you still see them as a person, not an impairment. First and foremost, and always.
I have to stop here because this is a very personal point. Please, when you're talking to a visually impaired person and he has his wife or somebody with him, address him,
Exactly.
not the other person. All right?
Okay?
Budu signora, tella u dattara signora.
Għandek il-libda mwara, hu dammek. Okay? Issa, dan qed ngħidilkom tinsewx, jodda tfal l-iskola. Issa. Naraw differenza. Aħna qegħdin ngħidu l-istudenti li huma visually impaired. Sorry, I'm sorry. I switch over to Maltese. Dispietti. I'm sorry. We are always talking about students who are visually impaired, and that is your main concern. But students grow up.
Good job. Here, we have many Austin Peay student teachers who need to come in and do observation hours. So we were contacted in February that we had a blind Austin Peay student. We talked about the fact that her guide dog, Wilhelmina, had a job to do.
So think of all your other students in the class.
You know which one I'm missing, right? Which one am I missing? That's right. And what does Wilhelmina do for me? She sees for me. That's right. She acts as my eyes. She has a very important job. That's her job. And I also depend a lot on adaptive technology, which is technology like you have, but it's more equipped to someone who's blind and visually impaired like myself. It's kind of amazing because I never knew that you can do that.
You have to prepare yourself for something.
I think it's pretty amazing that somebody that has a disability can do other things that a lot of people can do. And I'm going to start off with showing you some Braille. And Braille is basically raised dot. And it's basically how the blind and visually impaired read. She's amazing where she can do stuff that some other people can't do.
I think this is great. I think, our students need every opportunity to witness different kinds of people. It's not often that happens.
And you can do anything you put your heart and mind to it. You just go for what you want. Nothing's impossible.
So, do you think those children gain by seeing her or not?
Yes, of course.
Okay. Now, I want you to stop and think a bit. We don't really have time for group work, so when you see groups, we have to forget. But what defines you? Stop and think a minute and jot down a couple of words if you don't mind. You have what to write? Have what to write? Okay. So jot down 3 or 4 words that you think define you as a person. Okay? Jot down what you think defines you as a person. I can't give you a lot of time. Okay? Now, how would you define the lady that we saw in the previous video? Jot down a few words as well. Okay? Now, are they very different to how you define yourself? Can you give me some examples that are comment about? Okay. More? No one else has any matches?
She was confident.
Alright, and easily somebody over here has that. Okay. Did anyone define her according to her blindness? But it's still there, isn't it? Does it define her, or is it just a part of her? When you define yourselves, those of you that are short-sighted or have problems with organizing themselves and their work and their desks, did you put that down? No. So we have many parts of ourselves, and that goes for the students in the classroom as well. So we should not be saying, I have a visually impaired student, should we? What should we be saying? I have a student with learning. Because that is secondary. I have a student who is blind. Student first. Okay? I'm hurrying a bit because I don't know how much more time. I'm still with it. Now, after you saw the reactions of the children in the video where the lady went to school, I have 2 points there for you to take on board. Read them. I would like you all to read them. I'm not going to read them to you. Those are 2 opposing views. I'm not going to tell you which is the right one, but I hope that by the end of this presentation you can make your own. Both of them are standing on opposing sides, but both of them have merit. Both of them believe that they're right. Okay? But you need to think about it. It's a thinking point. So, think a bit. Losses, gains, who loses, and it is not the blind student or the student with blindness. It is not the student with visual impairment. Only who gains and loses. Okay? And here we're going to meet Adam.
This is Adam. He started his school career in mainstream education until he suddenly became blind.
I started the mainstream school up to when I was 5, and I went blind one day in class, and from there I went to the opticians and they referred me to the hospital, and after that I just got moved to a school with a vision impaired unit attached to it.
Think of how he must have felt. Losing all his friends.
Adam is now back in mainstream education
Okay.
and attends an other school in Cleethorpes. So what services and provision does a mainstream school such as this one have to offer students such as Adam?
Our service believes in early intervention, so we try to listen to our children very early on in order to give them skills which will minimise the delay caused by their visual impairment. We then deal with their families and other agencies as we take them through school in order to give them the skills they require, the daily living skills they need, their social skills, and to access the national curriculum to them.
Okay? I'm not going to do the whole video, but I don't know whether you could hear the most important point is accessing the curriculum. And he's back with friends, with social, he's got the ability to interact socially with classmates. When he moved to another school which had a particular unit for people with visual impairments, what did that mean? He was not in a class with other students, was he? Okay. So again, take that on board, relating to the other things we said. Okay. Now, if you were to suddenly or slowly or over time find yourself visually impaired, how do you think you would react? How do you think your life would change? What kind of support would you want? You had a little experience. Might not be total blindness, might be a gradual deterioration. What kind of support would you want? Would you want people to start doing things for you all of a sudden?
No.
Would you want people to just ignore it?
No.
So, would it change who you are? No, you are still you. You don't want people to cross the road and not speak to you because they don't know what to say, do you? And why do you think they wouldn't know what to say? Why would they feel uncomfortable?
They pity you, right?
Do you think that children with a student who is visually impaired in their classroom year after year would be uncomfortable when they grow up?
No.
There you go, the answer is not you.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so here I think Joe would probably be more knowledgeable about this than me, because I got this out of him. But there was research done part of this project, am I right?
You have a question there.
And these were part of the important points. I might have left some out. But these were some important points that came out of teachers like you, persons with visual impairment, a number of groups, am I right? Interviews, focus groups, was that it? And these are quite comprehensive, and you are covering most of them. Okay, so how are concepts formed? What do you recall? Not this, sorry. One second. Isn't that good? Yeah.
You have a question up here.
And I have this slide, I think.
There is a question.
Yes.
There's a question up here.
Okay. You have to wait. Okay. Ask.
Okay?
Uh-huh.
Because it said, do you change? I think if you're born blind, maybe you don't change. But if you become blind, for example, what about myself? I started wearing glasses at 40, and it happened rapidly. In a year from not needing glasses was becoming worse and worse. It did change me for a period of time. I became very nervous. I was like, even my children, I know, before I used to be more patient with them.
But you said I became very nervous.
Sorry?
I became very nervous.
So it did change me.
So it was still you. Did you, as a person, change?
Yes, my character.
Or your characteristics change.
That's what makes us us.
Okay. Would other people who do not get visual impairment become more nervous at times? Would they pass through periods of time where their personality is different? Are they still the same person? So,
I felt different.
but your identity, do you think the person is where?
I felt different because there were things I used to do which I couldn't do anymore.
Yes, definitely. I gave you the example of myself. I used to drink white wine, now I drink red vomiting out. You know? So that I won't drop my glass.
And yes, it's a struggle.
Yes. Now, I meant a deeper personality, the person who you are. I am still in a bad time. I still feel that I am the same person I was without. Now that maybe some time has passed, do you still feel like that, or do you feel yourself?
There are times when I still feel the change because before I used to be much calmer, I used to tolerate more.
Yes. Yes.
So
but when people
change.
talk to you, do you want them to talk as if they are to a stranger, or?
No, but I'm glad that, for example, my husband understands that I'm not that calm person I used to be.
Yes.
Because
but for him, you are still you, aren't you? You're not a stranger all of a sudden.
Even someone much calmer.
My husband has someone much skinnier than me. Let's go somewhere on the slide. Maybe they can find out. Let's get down to what's going to affect your students in class now. So we spoke about similarity. Okay? Now we're going to discuss differences. So think back to what you know about child development. Your Piaget, your Vygotsky, all your theories on development. Okay? What do you remember about concept formation? How does it happen?
It associates with something.
Alright? What else? You start forming concepts from when you are born. How do you form them?
In stages.
In stages. From what?
From your senses.
Okay? So, take it a bit further. If you can't see, or you can't see the same way, are your concepts formed the same way?
No.
Tell me one basic concept that most little children have.
A square and a circle.
Alright? Would a child with visual impairment have that concept?
Yes.
Yes. Why?
Because can touch it.
Okay. Think of a concept that would be difficult to form if you are blind.
Giraffe.
Light and dark. What else? Colors. Shapes are usually formed as a concept.
Shades of color.
Shades, and even the color itself. But what then is usually a primary concept? What would be probably the first concept that would be formed of color? I have a baby. This baby doesn't see, but this baby touches the blanket. This baby touches my face. This baby... Texture. Rough, smooth, bumpy. Rough. Many different kinds of rough. Not one. Slimy. Again, not one. So there you have, somebody mentioned shades of color. Yeah, shades of texture as well. Yeah, various levels. Okay, not just the textures. Whereas, if you have a digitally developing child, would they have the various shades of textures? Or would they have rough and smooth and bumpy? Will they have 6 different versions for rough? Like you can have 6 different versions of blue?
It will not be that heightened.
Okay? So concept formation happens because the brain learns all the time. Only it will be different. It will be what is excess. Joe mentioned giraffe. You can have a concept of giraffe, but it will be different. Because you can feel it for a giraffe and recognize it from a toy lion, for example. How many of our children have actually seen a giraffe? Typically developing children. Okay? How do they form their concept of giraffe?
Pictures.
And soft toys. So, if you have a child with visual impairment, he's never going to see a giraffe. If you have a child who is sighted, you will see a giraffe someday, an actual giraffe. So he's got this idea of giraffe as either a two-dimensional object, or a soft toy, or a plastic toy. Okay? So there you have concepts that can be formed, but differently. More concepts. Yes, I can think of a little girl who's blind, who's under 3, who can recognize giraffe and lion and cat and dog and all of them, just by feeling them. So, another concept. 10 more concepts, please. Because this will affect you in the classroom.
Smell.
Well, is there a difference between a sighted child and a non-sighted child? No. What other concepts do you think there will be differences in? So we said the primary would probably be textures. So you would need to do what in class? Make sure that you use textures. So, with children with other difficulties like organization, what do we do to their timetable and files? What do we do with the adaptations? We color? We color code them. So with an unsighted child, with a child with visual impairment, what would you call it? How would you call their timetable, their fight, and so on? They're very different textures. So you have to have textures in your classroom. How would they know when they're stepping from inside the class to outside the class? What could you have?
By chance. Some type of
That's by sound, yes. And
Something they can.
what can you do to the floor?
Something they can feel on the wall or on the floor, tactile.
Okay, so you can have something on the floor, there's your shoe, feels, yeah. Yes, when you're approaching steps, for example, not just on the edge of steps. I would love to see that everywhere. Because a lot of times, even a handrail starts after the first step. There should be a tactile marker on the floor, at least 2 steps before the steps start. So in schools, how many heads of schools are there here? So heads of schools, assistant heads of schools, think about it.
And my wife got health assistants, they should prepare this.
But we cannot rely on other people. We have to do it. Okay? We cannot wait for other people to tell us to do these things.
You have to tell them.
You have to push for them.
They're not here.
And what are you? Okay. So, what is the child's knowledge of the world? Child's knowledge of the world. Can you think? Child's knowledge of the world. How is it gained? Do all your typical students have a good knowledge of the world? No. What do you do in your classroom to adjust for it? Knowledge of the world. So for that, you need to see what knowledge of the world a child who is blind or has a visual impairment lacks. And you have to cater for it as well. We now have a multicultural access in our classrooms. So we are catering for children who do not have the same concepts, who do not have the same knowledge of the world. And we use things like nursery rhymes, we use stories. We have to make sure that we add those supports that the knowledge of the world of a person that does not have sight lacks. Okay? That's something else to do in the classroom. So, I'll move on. Alright, this is what I was telling you before. Look at these are the ones who joke. No, but maybe, I don't know the ones. I read some of them, these were the ones. The physical structure of the eye, and the different areas that can be responsible. You covered that before, didn't you? Yes.
Cognitive development differences.
Okay, that's what we've just been talking about.
Impairments.
According to different impairments, that's important as well.
Variation in concept formation.
Okay.
Compensation to other senses. And how the brain works with input.
One moment here. Can I just... One of the areas which the American ECC adds to this is what are called compensatory skills. But when you go into it, the compensatory skills are almost all technological or daily living, etc. So we prefer to emphasize daily living, orientation and mobility technology, rather than have a shorter 1-hour module which would basically be saying the same stuff. But we've already learned. For example, it's clear to us that if we do this again, and I hope we'll do this again, the structure of the human iPad will have to be 2 hours.
Yes, probably. That's all it is, I think. Because I'm skipping 1 hour.
Yeah.
Differences in relationship development. Now, that I've got a young boy here who I think is going to mention as well. And so, I'll keep that forward. Now, these are a bit bigger because I think of this. Okay? These I've given even more importance to them, even through experience with children. Anxiety, continuous anxiety, near constant and unfamiliar situations. Yes. Do you know how many times, every time I'm invited somewhere new, I back off, sure about the place? And if I go, I am anxious non-stop till I get there. Will I find the entrance? Will there be steps? Is somebody going to be laughing there? Maybe for me not so much, but somebody who can't see anything. A child. So if the child in your class is anxious, understand, anxiety is all the time. Importance of continuous experience of success. I cannot emphasize this enough. All students need to experience success. But students with a visual impairment or who are blind need this even more. They need continuous experience of success. Adaptation of the environment to facilitate orientation and mobility in school. What we mentioned about tactile boundaries. Importance of independence, and this again, to me, is paramount. The importance of independence. And again, this somebody else will be mentioning it to you as well. So, the teacher. How are the teachers and the LSCs doing? Okay, what can they do apart from the teacher or the particular teacher, peripatetic teacher? I don't know how often they visit schools. I don't know if it's very often, but obviously you are not going to want to go. Yes, but you cannot rely only on the teacher of the blind. Why? Because you are in the classroom, you know what needs to be done for participation. So don't give up your authority, don't give up the ownership of the class, and don't give up your responsibility. Okay? You work hand in hand, yes, with the teacher, but ultimately, you are the one that's responsible for the participation of that student in your classroom. Is it? Are there any questions about that? And it's not just the LSC. I hate it when I go to my grandson's parents' day and he has an LSC. And the teacher will tell me, oh, he has an LSC, it's better if you want to talk to her. Why? Isn't he part of the class? Okay? So, all right. Keep that in mind as well. Okay, so the amount of learning that takes place in the classroom, right? The amount of independent learning is going to depend very much on a number of things. It's going to depend on the nature of the impairment, and it's going to depend on the technology that's available to the student. Right? But the actual learning, the amount of the actual learning, is going to depend on how the teacher and the LSC are capable of adapting the work going on in class to be accessed by the student. The same way as you cater for all students, it has to include the non-typically developing students, including the student with blindness or visual impairment. Any questions on this? Probably I'm preaching to the converted since you're here. But you are the ones that have to infect the rest of them. And not you be afraid, because there will be some teachers that will say, oh, what a lot of trouble! Don't invent for us, son. Don't set precedents, son. I meant that many times. Because you are doing something that's going to cause work with the other teachers or LSCs. No, you have to stand your ground. I don't know if I have time for this video. Let's just see a small piece of it. No, sorry, this isn't the video. This, but unfortunately the pictures are a bit... These are some examples which you can look up online. Examples of tactile fluency as pre-braille activities. Matching textures, use of paints, use of different objects. Because as we said, the tactile is going to be the primary concept formation. Okay? Some changes that you might need to do in the classroom. Okay? These are some changes that would help the use of handouts or audio files or sending handouts electronically to be read by the screen reader or braille reader or the student. Okay? You can record notes and send them as well. Okay? Some more sub-strategies. In the planning of lessons, the LSC needs to ensure that the teacher passes on. For example, I know that sometimes teachers change, they need to be flexible. Okay? But you know what you're going to cover over a term. If you're going to use 6 videos, pause them to the LSC beforehand. If you're going to use charts, pause them beforehand. Or better still, team up with the LSC and make a chart that's tactile. All the children will benefit from it. Because many children access knowledge much better hands-on than they do by seeing. But it's important that this is done ahead of the lessons, not the last minute. So you can do it for a whole term or for a whole week. Okay, well, even if the day after you tell her, you decide that you're going to change the lesson because the class isn't ready for that lesson, eventually you're going to do it anyway. So you should have the work ready when you're going to do it. You just get out the resources. Or you will get out the resources. And try to choose videos that the talk, that the audio explains, rather than just images, if possible. If it's just images, then you need to have them, to have adapted input for the other students to access. More strategies. Again, provide tactile experiences. Whether it's maps, whether it's diagrams. Now there's paper, swell paper I believe it's called, where you can actually, am I right, Joe, swell paper?
Yes, I think so.
You can draw up maps, diagrams, and they can be fed. Okay? They're very easy to use. They're not difficult at all. You don't need any technology to use them, you just
We'll be showing them to you later on. Including, hopefully, 3D printed.
Be creative in the use of materials to provide tactile learning. More strategies. Now, instructions need to always be given orally, not just visually. Sometimes we forget, don't we? When students need to get the teacher's attention, they could clap instead of raising their hands. All of the students would clap instead of raising their hands. And I would add to it that if I'm getting teacher's attention, I would clap and say my name. So that the other student will start recognizing voices, yes. But if I clap and say my name, Ninette, then the other student knows that I asked for the teacher's attention. Or the teacher herself, when I clapped and say yes, Ninette, small changes. Sorry. Għalek kolla bżon iżjed. Mela, jiena se niqafem, però nixtieq ġiex minuti fast forward. This is an independent student. A student who has fought for his independence in our school. Okay? He will come up and tell you something about these photos, about himself. The next few slides are about independence, but I think he can tell you better than I can. I think you'll have to give me more time, Joe, next time.
Yes, yes.
Because I could easily have had another hour.
Yes, yes.
In fact, I skipped over quite a few of the steps.
I know. Apologize. Because this is our first experience.
Yes. And the technology was playing up, so we started with Okay, Samuel.
But if you want, if you're interested, we can create a video and show it to you. We can send it to you.
Okay.
More interested. By the way, these videos will be put up by now at the Erasmus website, our Erasmus website. Any questions which you have, suggestions, complaints, etc., please use our Facebook page. She's in charge of it.
All right, can I don't think Samuel needs an introduction actually. So Samuel is going to help us understand a bit how important it is to be independent, for teachers to help us be independent. Okay, go ahead.
So, first of all, I'm Samuel Ferrugia, 100% blind, 13 years old, and I go to Huntingley Senior. So, first of all, before I say anything, how many LSEs are there in this room? Okay, so what I'm about to say will especially concern you, so keep attention. So,
potential teacher.
First of all, to understand what we need. So first off, before we talk about why we need independence, we need to understand what is actually independence. Independence is when you take a student who is visually impaired, blind, whatever, and you let them do their own thing. I hate it when teachers, LSEs, anybody think that I can't do certain things. For instance, I was in a primary school. I was sitting by the door, I wanted to go to the bathroom, which was 5 feet away. As soon as I get up, there's a torrent of people keeping me from going to the bathroom, basically, because I know I might run into a wall or something. This is important to dispel. It's also important to remove the concept of disability, because, as a person I know once said, everybody has a disability. Mine can be my sight, yours can be hearing. Everybody might have their own little thing, but it shouldn't define us. So, when you have a blind student, it's important to let them adapt and become independent to themselves, because then they'll learn later on in your life. Now, when the concept of getting a student independent comes into play, you need to be cautious when you do this, because first of all, you need to see how independent the student is in the first place. You can have somebody, such as myself, who is mediocre at best and can move around fine enough, but needs certain help in other areas. You can have a student who has, for most of their respective lives, been eating out of other people's hand. And you need that knowledge, basically, to let the independence sort of play out. You have to start gently, is what I'm trying to say. You can't just throw them into the deep end. This brings me nicely to the point of socialization. You can't grab a student who has basically had no social experience in his life and shove him into a group of people. I'm speaking from personal experience. After I became visually impaired, blind, whatever you want to call it, I received a massive hit in my amount of friends. They started dropping like flies, basically. And it's been like that for the past 3 years, with little to no contact. And this year, finally, I have started to ingrain with the help of a few notable people. And the process of socialization is a very delicate thing, because on the one hand, you want these kids to socialize, you want us to socialize, but you have to start it gently. You can't throw us into the deep end of the pool. It has to start from the shallow end. You introduce them to 1 or 2 people, get them socialized a little bit, then you put them into a group. I hate it when I, as a person, get shoved into a group with over 20 people and expect to socialize. Also, a very important thing to keep in mind when you're dealing with visually impaired, blind, deaf, any disability really, is that one mold will never fit all. Everybody has their own unique quirks. If you try and apply the same mold to different people, everybody will have a disbenefit.
You know, there's a lot to say. That's all right. Put the last bit in a sort of close.
To wrap off in a very quick, hurried events is basically the final point is communication. This is the sole thing that any LSE, any teacher has to know. Communication with the student. It's fine you communicate with the parents, you start visualizing them. I mean, actually a great skill to do is visiting the student before your term with them starts, as in like last year, I was in a different school. The LSE I have these days actually came to the school as a sort of hands-on experience to get to know me, my different traits. And that is a very good thing. Communication, as I found, is the #1 problem. You need to ask students, you need to get their input. Because if you make diagrams are fine. Textiles are fine. But are they fine if the student doesn't find them fine? And that is basically what I want to say.
Okay, any questions? Kindly come up for it. This time I think Joe will need to be honest.
As the old Marx used to say, each day is tired. That's all for today. Does any man final comments or suggestions, please? All right, we hope to see you next week. I hope you found it interesting. No, 2 weeks. All right? All right? Yes.